We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live, Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live.
Mikey Garcia believes that a fight between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence doesn't make sense just yet. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to the channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. If you want to become part of the gang notification gang, please hit the bell icon. Shout out to the super chats, channel donations, the Venmo donations, the Cash App, and the Patreon family. We working. Shout out to ESPN Plus. Sign up for ESPN Plus below using my link. It definitely helps the channel, and I appreciate you guys for using the link, the people who've already purchased UFC 246. Now, Mikey Garcia did an interview, link in the description, and he gave his thoughts on Spence versus Crawford. You know, Crawford, he's been on social media in the past month or so, and he's been saying that's the fight he wants, or Pacquiao. And I told you my opinion. I don't think it's likely. Definitely not for next. Said some of the same things that Mikey Garcia is now saying, and we gotta listen to, you know, the different opinions, and this is Mikey Garcia's opinion. Mikey Garcia says, I want to see Errol Spence back first to see how the accident affected him. It's hard to say now because we haven't seen him in the ring. What if he isn't the same? He doesn't have the same reflexes, or he can't take a punch as well. When he comes back, I'd like to see him back first before fighting anyone that's a serious threat. I still don't know if that fight will ever happen because of the different alliances, different promotional companies, different networks. And I think that's a fight that is difficult to produce. I know Crawford would love the fight. He's a fighter. I know Spence would take the fight too. It's not just what they want. That's network interest, promotional interest. You've got to look at the business first. When fights between different fighters with different promoters and different networks get made, one of the reasons they get made is there's so much interest and so much money. Everyone says, F it, let's share, but we'll make a lot of money still, right? He says with Wilder Fury, they'll be doing ESPN and Fox for the upcoming show on February 22nd. So Wilder is fighting for PBC on Fox. Fury is with Top Rank for the last year or so, and he's doing ESPN. But the first fight was such a big fight, and I'm sure they're expecting a big turnout for the second one. With all the money being involved, the promotional companies are willing to work together to make that happen. Right? And if you guys notice, this is the same thing that I said. This is the same exact thing that I told you. Like, when it comes to Wilder Fury, you can't lump that in with Spence versus Crawford because it's its own different fight with its own different set of rules. You get what I'm saying? Like I understand what people are trying to do, but boxing, you gotta stop. Like, people should stop going for the low-hanging fruit. They perpetually try to compare two things that aren't even comparable. Like, this isn't apples and apples. Like, for example, Wilder and Fury, they already have history together. Spence and Crawford don't have a in the ring. We shared the ring for some odd rounds or 12 rounds, and we've already had a successful fight, and we can build off it, and it was left on the cliffhanger. So right then and there, Spence Crawford becomes a different fight. Plus, you got two heavyweights, different division. Heavyweights, people want to see it. Wilder's a knockout artist, and they're big personalities, you know. Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence are a little bit more tame, not as charismatic unless they are pushed that way or unless they're feeling frisky. So you got two different personalities involved, right? So it's just a completely different fight. Mikey Garcia continues, when you have Crawford, who unfortunately doesn't sell that well, Spence on his own doesn't sell that well, which that's a lie, bro. Because I don't know why Mikey even said that, because he fought Sean Porter and sold. He did 16,000. No, it was 14,500, 15,000 in Texas. See, people have to get facts. This is why new media is so pertinent in this game. And Errol Spence fought Ocampo, and he was from Mexico, and nobody knew who he was. He was just really a mandatory. Errol Spence did 14.5, 15,000 plus people. I was there. I have video on my cell phone to this day in the Frisco at the Star. You know, you probably have a bigger crowd than Mikey Garcia versus Jesse Vargas, or the same amount of people. You know what I'm saying? So I don't agree with Mikey there. He says Spence on his own doesn't sell. Ocampo definitely wasn't a name that was like, you know, sought after. And Errol Spence, his last 3 fights have did 15,000, 50,000, 16 plus thousand at the Staples. Mikey continues, it doesn't seem like there's enough interest from the promotional companies to make the fight happen because there's not a whole lot of money involved. I'm sure the fight would be a great fight, but on paper it doesn't show the finances. It doesn't make sense yet. Maybe in the future, after another victory or two, after we see Errol Spence back and he's completely recovered, then maybe. Until then, they pick up their numbers on their own. It's harder to make those kind of fights. You have Pacquiao Mayweather 6 years in the making, different networks, different promotional companies, making it a lot more difficult to get it done. But there was so much money involved that they finally came to an agreement. They decided to put their differences to the side, get the fight done, but that's because there's so much money. There's not that much money, and they're making money on their own. Do the promotional companies make very good money each individual fight on their own? Then there's no need for them to fight each other. You know, and Mikey Garcia, he's saying a lot of what I've already told you in terms of Crawford Spence. And I told you, this is, if you guys listen to my channel, I hope you guys do. I don't just talk just for the sake of talking. Like this whole Crawford situation, I have predicted before Crawford even moved to welterweight. Like when it was a thought, I'm like, who's he gonna fight? Everybody good is on PBC, and we haven't seen, like, Crawford. He's fought John Molina and Felix Diaz, who are Al Heyman advised, but not A-listers. You know, the guys with the big brands and making the big traffic and making mega millions on their own. You know, so I agree with a lot of what Mikey's saying, minus the arrow doesn't sell on itself. This is not a deal of the fighters. Is deeper than that. It's deeper than rap. It's deeper than that. And we're seeing the politics in boxing a lot. And that's why I have to feel like there's a lot of clout chasing going on in boxing. Like Devin Haney, do I feel he wants to fight Gervonta Tank Davis or Ryan Garcia? Absolutely. Ryan Garcia says he wants to fight Tank Davis, Devin Haney, stuff like that. But again, does it look like Golden Boy is anywhere near making Ryan Garcia versus Tank, and they're putting him in there with someone that Tank knocked out on the Mayweather-McGregor card in August of 2017 here in 2020? We're not even headed in that direction. You know, Devin Haney couldn't get Lomachenko. Eddie Hearn couldn't get Lomachenko for him for a title shot. Instead, Loma fought Luke Campbell, right? And then he still couldn't get Lomachenko. He couldn't get Devin Haney versus Luke Campbell. You know, what makes me believe that Eddie Hearn would be able to get Tank Davis over on DAZN for Devin Haney, who had to give up his belt per injury, you know? And the same thing with Crawford. It's just politics. This is politics. Do I believe Bud Crawford is down to fight top welterweights? Absolutely. But once again, it's not as easy as that. And the other thing is, Bud and his team, in my view, they kind of approached the situation wrong, and they put videos out and interviews out where they have stated that they are the A side, that they deserve and demand 50-50 and stuff like that. And something Mikey didn't like delve into that I have on my channel, that I really believe, aside from the fight has to be big enough for the promoters to want to, you know, go against their own agenda, which I've already told you, you know. Beyond that, I think they are making Errol Spence, they have the stable to make him a bona fide star, even bigger and bigger, and put him in the opportunities and the positions and give him the opportunities to shine. and it'll be undeniable that the PBC guy, whoever is wins basically almost like a welterweight tournament with everyone but Crawford, that person will hold all the infinity stones. So ultimately that person will end up being the Thanos of the welterweights. So that gives you all the pool. So everything that Bomac and Bud Crawford and Bernie and different people, Top Rank, said about Crawford, they won't be able to deliver the A-side value if Errol Spence is put in the positions to fight and beat Pacquiao, keeps doing big live gates and attendance numbers, keeps fighting on pay-per-view, keeps having the Showtime, Fox, Engine, Network TV push him and, let him get those opportunities to get his numbers up and keep growing, then it's going to be hard for Terrence Crawford and Top Rank to argue he's the A side. So I think that's another position when it comes to negotiations. I don't think it's about PBC's afraid to let Errol Spence fight somebody, because Sean Porter's just as deadly style-wise to make you look bad as Terrence Crawford. We still have questions about, Crawford still, Sean Porter has a better resume at welterweight than Crawford. So if PBC is going to run the risk that Errol Spence loses to Sean Porter, who has a rugged style, you can get a cut, headbutt, and stuff like that, then I don't see them fearing Crawford for Errol Spence to fight. But he's not aligned with the home team, and it's just a way of like sunning Top Rank and Team Crawford to the point where it doesn't happen on your watch. You build your fighter the best way you know how to, which you don't have the players to. And then another person that they talked about for Crawford, which was Besputin, they're saying that he just failed a drug test. You know what I'm saying? So Crawford really doesn't have too many good options except for like maybe unnecessary rematches. Jose Benavidez, move up to 54, fight someone at a catchweight or something weird, or something less than desire like Crawford, Luis Collazo or whatever. And that's what I think more of this is about outside of the promotional. I think it's a power thing. 48 Laws of Power. I think it's more of a power struggle. They're putting the PBC fighter in the position to dominate the negotiations, not just the fight. Because right now it's already set in motion. Errol Spence had bigger fights, bigger numbers, bigger viewerships, was on pay-per-view twice, bigger crowds, and his fights received more critical acclaim than Crawford's, right? Crawford, this is factual. This is not like me being rude or picking sides. Crawford versus Amir Khan, the indications of numbers that they didn't even come out with the numbers, which will let but the indications of numbers that we received from industry insiders, they said around 125, 150,000 pay-per-view buys. Errol Spence in both of his fights with Mikey Garcia and Sean Porter outdid that at a higher price point. And his attendance, he did with Mikey Garcia at the AT&T Stadium, he did 50,000. And then the Staples Center was lit. I went to both those fights. It was 16,000. So, it's not the same attendance and it's not the same viewership. And Errol Spence beat Sean Porter, dropped him, got respect for how he fought and who he fought, right? And he collected a belt. So now he has 2 belts. So it is what it is. Crawford is a phenomenal fighter, a beast of a fighter, but Mean Machine doesn't give you the same clout tokens as Sean Porter in this modern welterweight division. Sean Porter is a more known, quantifiable commodity that people have to give you credit for if you can defeat him, in a close fight or not. Mean Machine, based on the way he's been branded, and he could be, this is the thing, Crawford is in the situation where he fights guys that could be tough outs, have good skills or good fundamentals, good basics and stuff like that, but they do not have the brand. They don't have the brand to go with it. So therefore he loses in that equation because he's not going to get the same credit. Like, this is just how sports work. Like, if you take down in the NFL the New England Patriots, right? That brand means something. Like, damn, you just beat Tom Brady, like in the playoffs. That brand means something. Just how everybody knows the Patriots are a good team, and Tom Brady and Belichick and the system they have in place, right? If Donald Cowboy Cerrone, if he beats Conor McGregor this weekend, that'll be his biggest win. Not that Conor McGregor has to be the best fighter he's fought, but just based on the brand. It would beating Conor McGregor will do more for Cowboy's career than any other win that he's had in the UFC. You get what I'm saying? So that's the power behind the branding, because you're fighting a good fighter regardless, but you're fighting a good fighter with the brand. Now even the casuals have to give it up because they've at least heard of the guy. But guys like Benavidez, who got shot and a little bit under the radar, Jeff Horn, we didn't know everything about. Guys like recently Kafalofkis and stuff like that, they don't bring the same star power, so that's the missing ingredient. So I think that's the other issue that Mikey didn't bring up, is the mere fact that this is a power game. This is jockeying for position. This is getting Crawford, trying to get Top Rank has to try to get him elevated in the negotiating, in the negotiations. That's why I think they want it so soon. They want it right now. They don't want to wait because they don't really have anybody. And the longer it's strung out and the longer Crawford has to wait, the harder it's going to be to keep his brand high, given the level of welterweights that they have and don't have. That's what I predicted this whole scenario. That's what I think this boils down to. Errol Spence and his team, they're not in a rush because they have quality welterweights and branded guys that they've been working on the brands of that he can continue to fight. He could do stay busy fights that people will still respect, like Ugas. Ugas is not the biggest fight that Errol Spence can fight, but people will respect it. He could fight Danny Garcia. He could fight even like a Sergey Lipinets or, somebody like that, Jose Cito, as a stay busy fight, plus the bigger fights. Like I said, Sean Porter rematch, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Pacquiao. So when it's a different level of rush when you're kind of on borrowed time, like when you're not in the position of power. And I think that's more so what this is about. This is about the battle for power. Errol Spence's team, they have great viable options for him, so they have and continue to level up and brand and keep tacking on to their clay mold. With Crawford, he's already kind of been on the fast track, and they fed everyone that they could feed to him that meant anything, and he's already ran through everybody. So if he stays at the division, what is he doing unless he's not fighting the best guys, which happen to be over on PBC? That's what this is about. I had to spend some time, we unpacked, talking about this. I predicted this whole scenario, so I don't even understand why people are seemingly shocked by this. I think this is just kind of the jockeying for position, power struggle, get your fighter in a position. And, unfortunately, I love Crawford, but in business, all's fair in love and war, and business is grimy, it's cutthroat. It's nobody else's job to look after somebody who's not part of their payroll. You get what I'm saying? Like, I get it. There's going to be a lot of people who hear me say that and, oh, you don't care about boxing. Get out of here. It's not about that, because my work speaks for itself of me caring for boxing. But I live in a real world. I'm a realist. And the reality is that's how business is. Ain't nobody out there going to be looking for making sure your payroll is done and, your workflow or workload is completed. They worried about their own thing. And that's how it mostly is. Kind of like what Mikey Garcia is saying, unless that pot grows so big to the point where they're like, man, we have to make this, or, it's in such a high demand. where it's just like it's senseless not to go that route. But again, when it comes to Crawford, that's a good fight. But Crawford, like, he hasn't fought the same amount of welterweights that Sean Porter has. So Errol Spence, he can not fight Crawford and still fight good fights for the foreseeable future via rematches or fighting Pacquiao, fighting Keith Thurmans, and options like that. These are all credible. I mean, so you mean to tell me if Errol Spence says, I'm not fighting Crawford, but I'm fighting Pacquiao next, you're gonna get mad? How would you get mad at that? Pacquiao's a Hall of Famer. Pacquiao has 71 plus fights or whatever. How is that a bad fight? How is that not a big fight? And this is the thing. Pacquiao has a loyal fan base that he's built over the last couple of decades. You get what I'm saying? So blockbuster wise, it'll make money. Pacquiao's a respected, guaranteed Hall of Famer with a great resume, a great style, a fellow southpaw, and he looked good versus Keith Thurman. So there's no way you can slight a fight like that and slag it and make it sound like it's a horrible or an atrocious fight, but then say, oh, I must see Crawford next, despite if you prefer that matchup or you don't think Pacquiao has a chance or vice versa. And like Mikey said, Errol Spence is coming off a car accident, so I'm just leaving it in his team's hands because I think he's owed that. He's done, he had a great 2019 and got in an accident. So if he wants to do no tune-ups and go straight at Pacquiao, that's his business. Straight at Danny Garcia, that's his business. But I think it's really his choice. And ultimately, I don't think it's going to be Crawford, as I mentioned. So I'm not surprised by anything. I'm just giving you my thoughts. We unpack.
So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.